So do you want to start off by just introducing yourselves and what role you really play in the band?
I'm Harvey. I lead vocals and I play guitar as well.
I'm Caitlin. I'm also lead vocals and I play the drums as well.
I'm Jacob. I'm the lead guitarist and occasional backup vocalist. Very occasional.
And occasional drummer as well.
And
Yeah.
occasional. Oh yeah, they do that. Oh man.
I'm Ryan. I play bass and backing vocals.
So how did you all meet?
The four of us started training at drama school back in 2017, and we were all training on the Arts and Musicians course at Rose Bruford in Sidcup. And it wasn't until about the second semester of first year that Harvey came to us with some original material. And I was interested in getting into a sort of full band setup, and that's when he approached the three of us, and it's just all sort of snowballed from there.
Headhunted over a couple of months of recon and then brought you all together.
It took you until second semester to figure out whether or not we're up to scratch to your standards.
Right. So who were your influences growing up? Was there a certain person that kind of made you really get into music or want to pick up an instrument?
For me, a lot of it was I came to guitar a lot later than singing. So actually a lot of my sort of roots into wanting to play music and gig and stuff is mainly in like soul and Motown. I think that was like the soundtrack of my childhood. And I think the first band I saw was the Four Tops on a double bill with the Temptations. So like very like Motown based to begin with. And then from there sort of found everything else and was like, I should probably play an instrument as well. That would be handy. But yeah. I've got a lot of like Spanish music influence from my dad, who's like Gibraltarian. So like I grew up listening to like a lot of Santana, a lot of like really interesting like groovy tunes by like I don't know, The Police. I'm trying to think of any others. Fleetwood. Obviously, then you got like Fleetwood Mac, and then went through a phase of like listening to Pink and like Florence and the Machine, Haim, Maggie Rogers, and it's all kind of like come from rhythm mainly. And any kind of like strong female vocals, I'm like a bit obsessed with. But yeah, so then I started playing drums when I was quite young. I think I was like 10 when I saw my mother was a teacher, and she did like a Christmas concert one year, and one of her colleagues was playing the drums along with the children, and I had to go to support my mother. So I was a bit bored, and then as soon as this woman got on the drums, I was like, what is that? I would like to try that. And then I did. I hopped on the drums afterwards, and it's kind of match made in heaven since then, really.
So my dad was like a massive Elvis Presley fan, and I just thought he was the coolest guy in the world. I wanted to be a guitar player because of him, and then when I was about 12 or 13, I became obsessed with like Dave Grohl and sort of all his kind of umbrella of punk projects like Foos and Nirvana and Queens of Stone Age and Tenacious D and all that. And and that kind of from there kind of stemmed into like kind of punk music, so like the Clash or the Sex Pistols or things like that. So that's kind of where I kind of come from, basically.
I grew up with my parents listening to a lot of stuff like Average White Band and Yellow and stuff of that kind of ilk. My dad was a big David Bowie fan. And then, around about the same age as Jacob mentioned, around about kind of 11, 12, I was big into Bon Jovi and that kind of like 80s hair rock and metal kind of stuff. And I was starting to learn how to play acoustic guitar before first year at high school. And then my older brother got himself into a band and needed a bass player, and then bullied me into playing bass. And then from there, I got into like sort of Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then obviously saw Flea from the Chili's and got like heavily influenced by himself, and then ended up just going sort of full pelt with bass playing since then. So listened to a lot of guys like Jackie Pastorius and Marcus Miller and Victor Wooten and all that lot. And right now listening to a lot of metal kind of stuff inclined. But from that point onwards, it was a lot of bass.
So what made you want to be in a band? Was there a certain thing that kind of like made you want to, or was it just literally you just wanted to?
Well, as Ryan touched on earlier, I mean, I think we've all played in a few bands, and some of us still, you know, sort of split our skills with more than one. But we've all gigged around a bit and played in different groups, and so I think we all knew that we loved doing that. And then for me, it was I'd been writing a lot, sort of like in my late teens, and had got a whole load of songs together, and I was like, these aren't the sort of songs that I want to just stand on stage with an acoustic guitar and I didn't want them to sound like that. They had, you know, full arrangements, or like they could be really big, and so I really wanted to bring together a group of musicians that could, you know, elevate the sort of bare bones bits of music that I'd come up with and turn it into something bigger than that. And being in a band is just, you know, it's just fun. Like there's not much better really than getting on stage with your mates and creating something that you think is great and you can see other people responding to it. So I think for them it was just about finding the perfect people to make those songs become everything they could be.
So obviously with your music that you do you have like, do your ideas come from like stories of things that have happened, or are they just really things that you just kind of make up?
Yeah, a lot of like songs that we write. I mean, a lot of the way we start is I'll bring some lyrics to the guys and maybe a tune or something, and then we'll build it from there. But like the ideas in the songs, a lot of it comes from real life experience or feelings, and then sort of taking that and dropping it into something where you can grow it with your imagination. I think that as actors is what, you know, that's what we were training in for our degree. We just finished now. But a lot of the work that you're doing there is basically putting a bit of yourself into an imaginary place, and you know, a fabricated circumstance, and then letting the two sort of run away with each other and seeing what comes out of it.
Yeah, it's that thing, isn't it? Like you'll read like some of Harvey's lyrics, and then you kind of just go, "Oh my god, I felt like that as well," and then suddenly somebody else goes, "Yeah, I've experienced that as well. That's quite cool." And then you go, this is what it means to create a sound based on a feeling or an experience that people share. And I guess that's why some of our songs people relate to, you know.
I think there's a real balance because, you know, I think different writers are different, but I definitely feel for me that I connect with something best when I see something real in it that's come from me. But sometimes it's nice to sort of take that and then play with it. You know, writers like Elliott Smith, I think, is a great example of that. Like you listen to his stuff and you think, God, this sounds like you're reciting the details of something that happened to you yesterday. And then, you know, you'll talk to him, they'll chat to him in an interview and he's like, yeah, no, it sort of happened. And then I just made up the rest of it. But the detail that he brings to it, you know, or brought to it from himself is what kind of makes it relatable to everyone, but then also it has its own life outside of the writer, I think. And then anyone that can listen to it can kind of put their own ideas to it or respond to it in their own way. And I think that's important to have both of those going at once.
Can each of you describe your music in 3 words?
Soulful guitar pop.
Bouncy, warm, and fun.
Okay.
I like that. That can be the new handle on the website.
Yeah, that'll be the one we put on.
I'm going to go with bluesy, jingly, Clash.
Okay.
Nice. I'll go for heartfelt, soulful. Oh God, I don't know a word. Somebody throw me a word, please. Anybody throw me.
It's just your words.
Oh yeah, loving. I think that's what.
Loving.
Loving.
So what do you think makes your band stand out from the others?
I think I make the band stand out because I'm a girl and they're boys, and you don't usually find bands where there's 3 boys and 1 girl. And also just like there wouldn't be the level of harmony going on.
I can think of several other bands with 3 guys and 1 girl. What are you talking about?
But no, I feel that. I think there's it gives like a broader, I don't know, when you hear the female voice and the male voice singing together, I think there's like an elevated level of of how you can understand the relationship in the lyrics and the relationship between the harmonies and the singers. And I think it just paints like a more detailed picture. And I think a lot of it, again, like, I mean, I'm dragging it back to our acting training now from our degree, but I think there's a theatricality to that. And like all being storytellers and being trained storytellers, I think we all bring that into the band. Even when we're performing on stage, having that connection of, you know, people that are really comfortable getting up there and showing how they're feeling. I think that's something that we've got that's special.
Yeah, I think when you watch bands play live, you can tell which bands are made of a group of friends and which bands are made of a group of people that were just there for the necessity and the want to just be in a band. And I think, I think you can spot the difference quite easily.
Definitely.
Also, like, if we end up like arguing, we can act as if we like each other because we're all actors, so it works perfectly.
You can get away with it.
Yeah, we should be a lot better at interviews if we were acting through that as well, but you know.
So do you have a favourite venue that you like to play? Is there one that really like particularly really stands out to you guys?
There's it's called the Eltham GPO, and I think we'd all agree that when we played a full set there, it's just like a normal pub, and there was no stage. We were like on the same level as like the audience, which were our friends, like singing back to us and stuff, and it just felt really small and really like intimate, but people were just like jumping up and down and going like crazy, and I think that was really fun. It was also great because it was really close to where we are, so lugging the drum kit there was easy. Yeah,
another really nice one, we played at the Hope and Anchor, supporting Manchester singer-songwriter called James Holt in October. And that was nice. Like, that venue's been there for ages, and I think, you know, bands like the Police and Joy Division and stuff played there in the 80s, and it was nice to sort of play somewhere where you could feel a bit of that like history of rock music and stuff there with you. But for me, it's the intimate, sweaty venues are my favourite, definitely, when you can pack them out and get people bouncing.
They are the better ones, I think. I think as well, the smaller venues you tend to find it sounds a lot better. It's about having these bigger venues that you can obviously get more people in, which is great. But I think you either have loads of people and sacrifice the sound, or have the sound and not have that many people there. You know, it's a bit of both.
Definitely. We played a gig on a rooftop actually last year, which was like very open. And I mean, we had a load of people, which was great. But firstly, it was nighttime. We were on this ledge and we couldn't see a thing.
Oh, dear.
And sound just went out. And yeah, that was a tricky one. But yeah. I get what
that
you're
really
saying.
sounds like my idea of hell, because I don't like heights either. So no.
Yeah,
Ryan,
it was a challenge.
Ryan, didn't you fall in that gig?
Yeah, my back still hurting me from that gig because there was such an abundance of sound problems that the sound engineer, bless him, was like up there with us trying to figure things out, swap cables and stuff. I couldn't see anybody from the roof. I took 2 steps forward to look over the railing of the balcony. I was like, nah, still can't see anyone. Took 1 step back and then I tripped over the sound engineer who's on his hands and knees trying to fart about with wires and stuff, and I just went flipping cascading to the ground.
Have you had like many gig stories like that, funny things that have happened whilst you've been doing gigs?
Yeah, when we played in Brick Lane, I think Caitlin had pretty much like fucked her hand the day before. Sorry, excuse my language.
Harvey Badger.
I know, I don't know what the rules are. But yeah, we had her taped up with like masking tape and foam to get through the gig. And you got some great photos actually of you playing.
It's true.
Pulling these faces where you look like you're either really in the pocket or in terrible pain, and maybe it's both.
I think it was a mixture of both, really. Yeah, that was not great. I think it was like the adrenaline gets you through, doesn't it? When things go wrong, you just kind of kick into this like, I've got to carry on playing, even if my drum kit rolls off the stage or I've broken my hand. So we kept going, and we were doing the last few songs, and I remember the boys every now and again turning around to look at me and just kind of analysing whether I'm still with them or not, or whether I'm just going to collapse because I was in so much pain.
How
and
much
I was
of
like,
a claw you had going on.
Yeah, it was just like, it was awful. And I think we got off stage and we did the like, yeah, we should just play Brick Lane, that's so cool. And I just kind of slumped down on the sofa and started crying because I think the pain suddenly, like I could feel it. I was like, oh God, I think I've broken my hand.
Is there a dream venue you'd like to play?
I would absolutely love to play Alexandra Palace. I think and the fact it's on a hill, I don't know what it is. I love it. Jacob's like,
No, I'm like, Wembley Stadium. There's like our name on it. Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, obviously, like, I don't know whether it counts as venues, but festivals in general. We were lucky enough to actually play the equivalent of, I guess, what would be like a summer ball, is it, for universities? And they called it Brewfest for Rose Brewford. We played it twice, and we would probably have played it this year as well had COVID not taken over. But I remember, like, last year we played it, we were, like, later on in the night. Did we headline, actually? Yeah, we technically we did before the DJ. And even though it was small scale, because Rose Brewford's quite a small campus anyway, it just felt like we were in Glastonbury. It was just amazing. And I think that kind of festival vibe, especially in the summer when people are just like, you know, the weather's good, people are singing along and dancing, and it's just great. I think any festivals would be up there to play as well.
So what would you say the local scene is like for the music? Do you feel there's enough around to help bands like yourself out, or, you know, is there a lot of people that's out there that helps you put on a gig?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, being London based, it's you've sort of got like a bit of a catch-22 because you're like, oh, I've got to get to London because that's where the scene is, that's where all the labels are, it's where all the venues are, and then you're like, that's what everybody else says too. So you end up having a really like quite saturated market of loads and loads of bands. But what that does mean is that you get loads of gigs. So, I mean, we're on a few like mailing lists, and we have a few promoters that we talk with. And I think, you know, if we were trying to book up a load of gigs, it would be really easy to do that. The trick is getting ones where you get like decent pay for. So it's sort of finding that balance of how many times do you want to play, and then also can you like earn a bit of money off it as well. And that's the trickier thing, I think.
Is there anything you'd change that you think would improve the help and with the local scene? I'm so sorry, that's my dog barking now.
I don't know, I just jump in and mention that we came across a pretty good initiative set up by a lovely French man. Am I right in saying he's French? It was called, yeah, it's like an app for musicians in the UK, I think mainly in the UK at the moment, called Gig Ride. Mm-hmm. And the idea of that is that it's kind of like looking to rent a house or like going on a dating app or whatever. You put in exactly what you want as the band, and then it kind of pops up with suggestions of gigs. So rather than the kind of pestery thing of going up, you know, being in the bar with your mates and then like slipping a big Wednesday card across the counter and being like, we'd quite like to play here, can you pay us? And not knowing if the venue want to do that type of thing. It kind of reverses it to go, well, it puts the control in your hands where you go, okay, actually, we want a gig on this date in this area for us of London, and it would be nice if we could earn 40 to 50 quid for a half an hour set or whatever, you know, and we put that in and it comes up. So that's a really good idea. I don't know if there's anything else you can think of, guys, that...
No, I mean, what would improve would be a bit more of that. And, you know, like we could spend hours bashing current government about a lack of funding for stuff. Obviously, I know we've had the big old saviour package recently, but, you know, more is always welcome and really necessary, I think. So I think, like, more funding to, like, initiatives like that, and more to help grassroots music, I think, come up in smaller venues. Obviously, you know, you've got your dream venues like Ali Pali and places like that, but no one ever gets to those if the beginning isn't really well supported. And I think those venues need to be supported so that they can put on gigs for, you know, up and coming bands like us, but then we can continue to do those and we can get paid by the venue for that. And I think giving the power to the venue to be able to host its own music would be a really useful thing for musicians. And then you don't get stuck with too many sort of middlemen of promotion companies. There are some great ones out there, but then there are also, you know, we have played a couple of gigs where they, you know, they don't give you a hand in the promotion of the event. They turn up on the night, they've never heard your music, and then they take, you know, all your money at the end of it. And I think, like, giving the power to the venues in that way, to be able to pay their artists to play would be a really beneficial thing.
And it's getting out of that frame of mind, especially from a performance like place. I guess like up until we've chosen to do this professionally now, especially before Bruford, I don't know about you three, but I was always so used to being like, oh, the local club in my area needs a drummer and a singer, go and do something for free because it's, you know, because your family are there and it's nice, and you kind of get into the
Exposure,
habit of going. Yeah, you forget that actually what you're providing is like a skill, but it's also entertainment, and it's also, it wouldn't be there if you didn't do it, and people want it. So it's that awkward thing of going, people assume that because you've got a skill, or you've you know, honed in on your craft, that you can just do it for free because it's natural to you. And it's like, no, I've actually, like, each one of us have probably put a lot of time, money, and effort into our individual skills, and now as a group as well. And it does cost money. You know, for anyone starting out, I'd say just beware of that, because it's little things that you don't expect that cost more than you'd probably like to put in out of your own money, because it's a risk. You know, we've been so lucky with people like accepting our music and being really supportive of it, and like genuinely, I think, saying that they enjoy our sound. But for a lot of bands, I know bands my age that have been going for a lot longer than us, and they haven't got to where we are because of the area they're in. So for me, they're from like the valleys, which is a bit deprived. It is deprived, and they can't afford to hop on a megabus to London and try and arrange a gig and stuff. It really does come down to, and then it kind of puts like a bit of a line between like artists that you know, where like mum and dad can just kind of go, we'll pay for you to record an album, and it's that difficult thing of being, it's difficult, isn't it? It's like,
like there's you know, there's a massive class issue within the arts, and I think like one way of tackling that from the, you know, the smaller groups rather than the trickle down is musicians really making sure that they're not being taken advantage of. And so I think, like, you know, you should be paid for your music in an ideal world, or at least be getting something out of it that's worth at least what you're putting in. You know, we all do trade-offs and free gigs, and you know, that is kind of how you get the wheels turning, but you just got to keep an eye on it.
We've had so many free pints thrown in, haven't we?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we'll give you 20 quid to split between you, and we're all going, okay, that just about covers the train there, that's £5 each. And then they'll be like, but we'll throw in a round of drinks, and we're like, great.
Yeah. So well, it's always a good idea in the evening, and then the next day you're like, oh no. But, yeah.
So I think that's I've heard a lot of people do that before, like you say, where they say, oh, here's 20 quid, and the band is just like, is that it? And then they're like, but it's all free drinks all night, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, makes it worthwhile. But like you say, it's a difficult one, like you say, because like you say, you've got to start somewhere, but it feels like you need the money really to start, and if you don't have that, there's only so far you can really go, and it shouldn't really be about the money. It should be about your music and being able to get it out there. But like you say, if you haven't got the money, you can't really do that, and it is a difficult circle as such, and it shouldn't be like that. But then, like you say, there should be something there that is in place, so the ones that can't afford to do things like that can still go out there and still do what they love, really. You know, Definitely. It shouldn't be about money, but like I think everything seems to be about money nowadays, and it shouldn't be. I
mean, you know, it forces you as artists to like be a bit creative in how you can get the things that you want without having the money to sort of kick you off. And we've done Kickstarter campaigns before, and we've collected friends together with lots of different skill sets to develop things for us, like videos or whatever, and done that on, you know, 0 to no budget. And we're lucky that we've got those contacts that we can draw in for that. But you know, it's a struggle, and a lot of people have it a lot harder than us as well. So
yeah, of course.
It's just important to always be aware of it,
I think even if we get back to the point after the pandemic of being able to go into venues and play, you know, any sort of capacity, any sort of size of show, is, you know, it's really important to support those venues and not have stupid things like councils give planning permission for living accommodations to be set up above a music venue, because there's been so many venues, especially there's a good 2 or 3 I can think of in like Edinburgh alone, where the venues had to shut down because of like noise complaints, even though the people moving into those flats and those newly built accommodations are aware you know, what it's about. But it seems like there's no sort of, you know, ground or traction that the venue has to stop it from getting closed down, which is crazy, like absolutely nuts. But so yeah, if we ever get to a point of being able to cram 100 people into a small venue again safely, then, you know, people should really try to get out and support it.
Definitely. And I think, you know, you say like, what's the world going to be like after all this is, you know, hopefully gone away? And there's always going to be musicians, there's always going to be artists, there's always going to be theatre makers. Like, they've been there forever and they always will be, because that's what people do. But it's the places for them to be supported, which is small grassroots venues. Like, that's where you've got to really look after the scene, I think.
So obviously you've said a little bit about it, but how have you actually coped as a band during this strange time at the moment? Has it made it difficult to make music and to really get things sorted with the band?
Well, we've kind of just been, we've just released our music video, our first ever music video, Stuck in the Kitchen, last week, which was amazing. And we filmed it back in January before lockdown and everything. But like, as Harvey was saying, it was kind of with like all our mates and everything. So it was a really collaborative, really kind of fun process. And it's been a long time coming, and it's really nice to have it kind of finally out and everybody loving it and kind of getting the attention that it deserves and everything. So that's been really cool. We've also kind of, we're sort of talking and planning about recording our next single, which hopefully will be before the end of the year. And I've got a few friends who are like cinematographers who are trying to get in for like making the next music video and like sort of working with that and doing that. And like, I've kind of recently, rather than being clever and saving all my money, I've spent it all on recording equipment. I can't afford anything anymore. But the plan is to like learn how to record like demos kind of by ourselves, so that when we go to studios we can kind of do it straight away. And then also maybe like 10 years time, have like a Big Wednesday HQ, have our own studio, and like be able to kind of be our own sort of bosses and kind of record everything ourselves.
I want to go on tour. I think lockdown for me has made that worse. I cannot wait to like, I love London and London gigs are so exciting, but like Cardiff's got a pretty good scene. Bristol is somewhere where I'd love to go play. We were lucky enough to go and play for a charity in Brighton. What are the charity called? I'm so bad with names. It is unbelievable.
Yeah, Calm.
Calm, yeah.
Calm,
it was such a like great thing to be involved in, and we were so lucky that we got asked to do that. But just like, it sounds silly, but like even just getting on the train with all of our stuff and like staying at Harvey's house, and his parents being so great to us and letting us, you know, kind of skive off paying for any hotel or anything, and like just like eating together, going to the beach together, getting some fish and chips, and then just getting in a taxi and going to the gig. Like, it felt really like, it kind of felt like a payoff a little bit from all the work. That it was a mini holiday, because we were doing what we loved and we were getting to know each other a bit more, and it just felt really nice to do that and kind of get out of London as well. So yeah, and like we'd love to go to Scotland and see where Ryan's from, and like there's loads of different places that we've got connections with actually that we'd love to go and play. I think it's just arranging it, isn't it? And especially
well,
now.
I mean, you know, if you look at the new rules on live performance, like outdoor stages are, you know, allowed to open pretty much from now or within the next few days. So I think there's actually going to be a big push for a lot more outdoor live music, and for, you know, bands that are well versed in packing up quick, getting out somewhere, banging out a set and leaving, and being pretty tight, which I feel like we are. I think it could be, you know, there could be a lot of room for us to find a lot of things to do in that world.
I know it's a little bit difficult to say at the minute because of what we're going through at the minute, but do you have any plans for the rest of this year or going into the beginning part of next year?
Yeah, I think we'd like hopefully get a kind of a single out and a music video out before the end of the year, and then kind of, because we've got like at least 10 or 11 original songs which we're sort of working through, and like Harvey's just released a couple more songs on his SoundCloud, which we hopefully will get to turn into Big Wednesday songs, and we're always putting this, you know, via Messenger back and forth to each other.
I got a ton of voice notes from Jacob of just like little guitar licks saved.
Hey, what about this? This is a good idea. And then
there's an abundance of material. So
yeah, and because we're all songwriters as well, like each one of us, so it's really cool. And then I think hopefully we will, yeah, it's all about when we can get back in the rehearsal room, basically, as soon as we can do that. And because we're all a bit scattered at the moment, but like hopefully before the end of the year,
when we can get back to London. Yeah, I think we're really up for hitting the ground running, to be honest. And we've learned a lot of stuff over lockdown. Obviously, we haven't had time to do the things that bands do of playing or rehearsing or really writing or gigging, you know, so we haven't been able to do any of that. So we've been able to turn our attention a bit to some other stuff and, you know, reaching out to people like yourself to sort of help us along and, you know, been able to work on music video. We've set up a website now, tidied up our YouTube channel, all of that stuff. So I feel like for going forward, when we can get back to doing the things that we're used to doing, having sort of developed all that way of working and become a bit of a slicker outfit in regards to how we operate outside of just our music, hopefully we can sort of shoot forward a bit when we can all be back in the same place.
Do you feel it will be a little bit different once you are allowed to go back out there, once you are allowed to play the venues? Do you feel like it's going to be a little bit different to how it was obviously before this strange time came about, or do you feel like it will kind of go back to how it used to be, or do you feel it'll just be completely different?
I'd like to think it'll go back to how it used to be, because just the thought of not being able to just, you know, go into a venue and operate the way that you usually would have and not thought twice about, you know, how like hygienic you have to be and like, you know, like wearing a mask and everything. It's yeah, I'd hope that before long, you know, maybe in 12 months or something, that all this will just be like a bad memory, and, you know, and it will be back to some, you know, pretty much how it was. But I think for the foreseeable future, maybe within the first 12 months, it probably is going to be some kind of like stripped back thing.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think one thing that will change, that's a good thing, I think there's going to be a lot of happy people in the place, you know. I think when people finally are able to get back in a venue, see live music, like, there isn't really much more on the top of my list of things that would make me feel good right now. Is just going to see a band in a pub somewhere. So I think there's going to be a lot of joy and a lot of people really, really appreciating being able to be in a room with people making music. But that said, you know, we were working on some like theatre stuff with our degree right up until lockdown happened. And so one of the things we've seen in the theatre industry actually is a lot more live streaming and being able to watch performances that are being filmed live and done over the internet. So it'll be interesting to see if any sort of big music gig streaming sort of platforms pop up, because I could definitely see a market for that. Of if you can't have a full capacity, but you can pay a reduced ticket fee to, you know, watch a band that you love from the comfort of your sofa, then, you know, I think there'd be room for that as well. So, yeah, it's a bit of give and take.
I think that pub toilets will be cleaner, and that's only a good thing.
That is only a good thing.
You know, there's not going to be the sticky floors. It's just all going to go up a notch with cleanliness, which for me is like a good thing.
I don't know. I quite like my, you know, boots sticking to the floor as you walk on stage.
How? Because it stops you
grounded.
from spin hard.
I think as well we'll enjoy the whole, all of the process of playing gigs again, in terms of like I had a dream a few weeks ago where we played a gig, and I remember afterwards, it was all that packing down after the gig, and I woke up and I was like, God, even just packing down the stuff, I just miss doing that. Oh God. So I think the whole kind of the whole thing will just be like, you know, I'm never going to complain about setting up or sound check ever again. My goodness. But yeah, just enjoying everything a bit more.
Yeah.